How's it going? Long time no see. Just kidding. But fucking, you know what? I recently learned that long time no see comes from making fun of the way Native people spoke English, and I'm Native descent, and I still learned that recently. And then other people who I know, they're also indigenous, will be like, "Oh shit, I didn't even know that either." And then it's like one of those things where you find out, and then you still find yourself using like this is how discrimination gets normalized and perpetuated with expressions and colloquialisms, right? Like to where it gets ingrained in our vocabulary. We start saying shit without thinking about it or realizing it, and then it can become difficult to eradicate that from your habit, if that makes sense. Or at least me, I have a hard time. Like, I try to change, and it's a struggle for me, right? So, like, I don't want to use those word choices anymore, but here I am still slipping up. So, but that just goes to show decolonizing is a journey. But today's topic, I want to talk about the fight for deaf autonomy and struggle for deaf representation. And what this is a follow-up to the last live stream I did regarding the spread of deaf misinformation. And so today I want to talk about solutions to that problem regarding deaf autonomy and deaf representation. And so basically what we're going to be kind of talking about is like a little two-in-one in a way. Like, one, um, reiterating why are we struggling for deaf representation or have the fight for deaf autonomy. A lot of that is rooted in the conversation from the deaf misinformation live stream we did. Um, and then two, I want to talk about how deaf autonomy and deaf representation in and of itself is the solution to um, you know intersectionality within deaf discrimination and um, helping stop the cause of spread of deaf misinformation with solutions, as well as just like providing accessibility for deaf community, and having equity in that regard, right? So yeah, I'm going to roll my live stream. I'm on a live stream. I'm gonna roll my intro, and then I'm gonna fucking ramble for two shakes of a lamb's tail at you about this. Hi, my name is Lexie, aka Deaf Child. I'm born deaf, hard of hearing. My team was one of the top teams between 2020 and 2024 in New Orleans and Louisiana. I began doing business as Deaf Child in 2013, marketing 2011, and sales 2009. I've earned 50 plus certifications in marketing and sales, and I have my Bachelor of Science from Loyola University, New Orleans, with a music industry studies major and a business administration minor. Visit my site at noladeafchild.com. Alright, so well, when I really talk about, I'm going to begin with more of discussing like our fight and struggle regarding deaf autonomy and deaf representation. So as I recapped in the last live stream, a lot of issues with deaf autonomy being stripped from us comes from colonialism. And it's rooted in initially Native genocide and cultural erasure, and cultural genocide against Native people is the first was the first blow to deaf autonomy and deaf representation, particularly when, I mean, obviously all of Native genocide is bad, but in regards to why it's relevant to this live stream, particularly in regards to the eradication, cultural assimilation, and whitewashed appropriation of hand talk, of Native signs, right? Um, Along with the fact that you couldn't have the formation of American Sign Language and Martha's Vineyard Sign Language, if it weren't for being off the back of colonialism in and of itself, because America is a colonial concept, right? So besides those things where it comes from, like our culture, well, strike one was when it came there, and then strike two was when against deaf autonomy and deaf representation, that's where only native deaf people, in regards to, I mean, all native people, indigenous people were impacted in that issue. But in terms of deaf community, it it was the deaf natives that experienced that, not the white natives, or people of other ethnicities and communities have their own history that I don't want to speak on, of course, though, or minimize any issues with. But I'm just, you know what I'm, do y'all know what the fuck I'm saying? But anyway, so I'm just speaking to like American history, right? Like, so here, like, how, and then the way chattel slavery and segregation and colonialism impacted other communities here also, historically took into account to where we have the intersectional means of stripping away deaf autonomy, also through using other forms of discrimination as tools, in my opinion. Um, and so then we have the struggle for deaf representation, where, for example, at the Milan Conference of 1880, deaf people were only given 3 hours to advocate for sign language to maintain it, while Alexander Graham Bell and hearing people were given 3 days to speak over deaf people on deaf issues and then have what they wanted upheld. And that's how it basically continues to go. And so I don't want to focus too much on the struggle and the issues there, because I feel like all of my content does that, and my last live stream I particularly did that too. But I do want to mention, we have the fight for deaf autonomy because of our struggle for deaf representation. And so if you want to support deaf community, in my opinion, the way to do so is to then, support deaf access, deaf equity, and amplify deaf people when we are telling you about deaf issues. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying deaf, DEAF. Of course, the captioner will get that wrong. Um, Goddamn, I never said duck. Fuck that thing. The fuck. Anyway, um, so with helping support deaf autonomy and deaf representation, how can we do that? Some of the ways we can do this are like, okay, so for every deaf person, it's going to be different in deaf spaces. A lot of deaf people, like for me, there are some issues where I'm just like, look, I don't even want a hearing person to comment on this. Um, and it's because it's just too triggering. It's related to my trauma, and it doesn't impact you. So there's not, and it's not my job to have to deal with the emotional labor of your bullshit, right? If you want to make it my job, you can pay me to do so. So that way I can go to therapy with that money, right? And but fucking, it's, if I'm just existing, it's not my responsibility to educate you. It really isn't. And it's one thing if you want to ask me a question because you're like, okay, well, this is a person who is sharing their perspective on this, so let me find out what they think about something. That I get, but there's a time and a place. So if it's a space where I say no, then respect that. But if it's somewhere else, then maybe I'll be able to address it. And if you say something wrong in terms of like where I let you know this is discrimination, then you're gonna have to be able to take that in. And if you can't, then that's where we will draw the line, right? For me. But, some deaf people, like, for me, for the most part, though, even if I say, like, I don't want to hearing opinions on deaf issues, my bad, misspoke. Even if I say I don't want hearing opinions on deaf issues, um, I still don't mind if a hearing person shows up and just wants to support and, like, leave emojis, leave a like, leave a comment or something. Because it's not that I'm saying get out of my space. It's just that I'm saying your perspective isn't welcome at this time because my whole life is forced to comply to your perspective. And so for me, we need autonomy. We need our own spaces to be able to say we are not going to have any hearing um, voice on this issue because I'm tired of it. My whole life, I'm forced to deal with it. And so on deaf issues, because it's what's holding us back, we really need the spaces where only deaf people are having the platform on deaf issues. So when hearing people build platforms off of deafness, that is the issue. That's the problem. And so one of the things you can do to help deaf community is stop trying to build your platform off of deaf issues. Don't exploit deaf trauma for views. It's one thing to process online where your stance is on deaf community issues or process your journey in your role as a person who may be affiliated with a deaf person or something. But, I've discussed ways that I think are respectful to do so, and I've tried to give examples in the past. But don't sit there and gonna speak over deaf people, build your platform off deaf people, be one of those hearing people being the reason why deaf people struggle for deaf autonomy and deaf representation because hearing people want to speak all over us on deaf issues. Let deaf people be the representation on deaf issues. So collaborate with deaf people, go buy from deaf people, credit deaf people, share deaf people, amplify deaf people, refer hearing to deaf people. These are ways in which you can support deaf representation and deaf autonomy, along with putting your time and energy and resources into spaces where deaf autonomy matters. You know what I'm saying? Are you part of your local chapter of National Black Deaf Advocates? Have you at least joined the Facebook group if you can't afford the fee to join? Because I understand not everybody can join the fee. Wait, I said join the fee. I meant join. I can't speak. Afford the fee. Um, fucking, uh, things like that. Like, what are you doing to better support deaf community? And if you're just trying to make content about deaf people, but you're not including deaf voices, or if you're exploiting deaf children who can't speak for themselves and you have no deaf lived experience to be able to spread actual deaf awareness on the issue, you are a part of the problem. And let me tell you right now, there's a big difference between a deaf person sharing their journey as a deaf parent than a hearing person trying to speak for deaf people as a hearing parent. It's not the same. You're not spreading awareness because you don't have any lived experience as a deaf person to spread awareness. A lot of deaf people, we have issues with our hearing parents when we have hearing parents. Trust me. And if you were part of deaf community, you would know that. So just letting you know, don't do that because that's not spreading deaf awareness. You would have to have a deaf perspective to have the capacity to spread deaf awareness. Hearing people have no capacity or ability to spread deaf awareness because you're not deaf. So that's all you need to know regarding deaf autonomy and deaf representation. If you're not deaf, don't speak for deaf people, don't speak for deafness. Thank you so much. Support deaf people. Thank you. I hope you have a great day. I appreciate you for being here. Yeah, this is, I know I'm doing a lot of these little live streams. I know I could be like, if I had planned them or put more effort into the production of them, they could be better or whatever. But I honestly think that me processing what I need to process in the moment right now as I'm doing it is valid and important for all deaf people to feel confident in doing and have a space and create their own place to do so because we can't we're not going to be able to advocate for ourselves if we're not documenting where our mind is processing in our advocacy journey. We're not going to be able to have the tools to understand what is happening to us if we're not recording it